there are two streams of thought in why increasing the farmers' income. First is the making the prices right, and then other is the developing the non-price infrastructure, irrigation and roads and everything. But as far as land reform is concerned, that is not in the place. So my question is, if you don't have a land reform, and even if you do that, the fractionalization of the land is so high, how non-price instruments can affect positively to double the farmers' income?
Thank you. I think we have enough questions raised, about 6 or 7 by my count. So maybe we should give space to the panel to address those questions, but we will have another round if there is need. Panelists, will you take one?
Again,
Yeah, sure. Alphabetic.
I think I will start with the first question directly addressed to me. That is, small farmers, they have problems, and what are the instruments we can? Yes, small farmers have a lot of problems, both within on their farm as well as in the ecosystem. And one of the problems is the access to various inputs and other facilities, including credit. It is restricted for various reasons, especially because the small size of the loan they try to contract with the banker, and because of the transaction was very huge and people are not willing to. In spite of the best efforts over several decades, still if you see the access to credit to farmers in general and small and multi-farmers, it is still very, very low. And it's almost stagnating, especially in institutional credit if you see. The access to institutional credit is very stagnating over the last couple of decades. In spite of the best of the efforts during these decades, including doubling of credit scheme, which somebody mentioned. Given this, there are several schemes, several measures taken. One is to organize in themselves, maybe in terms of groups, JLGs or maybe SHGs, and then or FPOs, where they can have the sort of a advantage of this collectivization. And especially if you see JLGs, SHGs, the transaction cost for the bank is expected to be lower, because the group goes and takes one loan, so that the bank can deal with one unit of loan unit, than dealing with 10 people and incurring 10 times the same. When borrower is also benefiting that 10. That is one. Similarly, farmer producer organizations, that is another institutional intervention, which is having potential to reduce some of the problems which small farmers face. And then, more important problem these people face, if you see the expenditure on health and education especially, for last 1 decade, 2002 to 2012-13, you will find that there is a clear-cut jump on the expense on these 2 points. You say take any other survey, the trend shown is expense on health especially is very high, and which is not very sustainable on a small order, if you should say that. So here, if you see the public systems which provide health and education, they have deteriorated. The cost of health care and education have increased like anything. So in these things, if there is a public intervention in these 2 spheres, and through whatever, maybe insurance or maybe direct interventions, I think that can help a lot in reducing the expenses on the farmers, so that his net income can improve. So that is, and then infrastructure is the second aspect, but providing infrastructure most of the time it is size neutral. It is not, it's a public good, so it can reach anybody who is responsible. So that way it can be a benefit that can benefit the production process. And one question on feminization. I am not expert in women and power, but this is happening in the sector. We also know that. And I think it is bound to happen because the production, type of production and technology is changing. But I think there is an inherent bias against women. For example, mechanization. I think traditionally, whatever works women are doing on the farm, they are all now shifted to machine labor. So then that is and apart from this, empowerment is a basic element I think which we should, I think towards that the SHG movement has helped a lot over the last 2 decades and a half. I think that can be one solution if we tap in certain pockets, especially we have seen UP and other places that have really helped improve their incomes as well as empowerment more important.
Thank you, sir, for that. Yes, a few points. On the question of feminization, what is clear from the data and whatever evidence we have is that while whatever employment generation has taken place, a lot of it has happened outside the rural economy, which has meant that men migrate and commute to the towns and cities in search for jobs, and women are left behind to do agriculture. It is not a choice that women make. It is simply because the commute and the insecurities and the suffering of the city is something that women can't expose themselves to, and therefore are unable to take advantage of whatever limited opportunities of employment are generated in the town. I think the question of social protection is extremely important. It's important to appreciate that social protection plays an important role in alleviation of poverty, in immediate reduction of suffering, economic suffering, and so on. But at the same time, it's important to extend what is conventionally seen to be social protection and include more fundamental things like land reforms that was raised by another person in the audience as part of it, and use it for more fundamental transformation of agrarian conditions. Lastly, to the point that J.Mohan raised, I think the implications of stupid decisions it's actually quite incredible. I mean, I did a very simple calculation when this whole cow protection business was going on. If you don't allow for cow slaughter, you're going to be having something like 27 crore additional unproductive animals. Did anybody even think about cost of maintaining those animals and the economic burden that would impose on farmers if farmers had to actually
no, it is criminal. It becomes criminal to abandon them.
To abandon the animal, all over abandoning of cattle has become a problem. Now you are saying that you make it criminal to abandon. But you know the scale of the problem that you are talking about. Did they even think of this? That the scale of unproductive animals that you will have to support, what would be the fiscal implications of it, or what would be the implication of it to farm households in terms of retaining? So you know these are things that are perhaps not even been thought about by people who do things of this kind.
Thank you, Rahul. Okay, let me get through 2 or 3 things which are relatively simple to answer. One, did the doubling of agricultural credit help? It possibly did, but we must also remember that a lot of that agricultural credit growth didn't actually go to farmers. A very large proportion of that credit ended up with accounts which are by no means those of farmers. Essentially what happened is that larger corporate deals managed to get a lot of that loan. Then Jairam's question about why does yield increases reduce costs? They don't always do it, but obviously the sort of yield increases which are essentially coming out of efficiency improvement will tend to reduce costs. And much of the so-called the draw of yield gap, trying to grab yield gap is of that draw, okay, which is essentially efficiency improvement. But obviously, I mean, there are other yield-raising things like the traditional green revolution technology, which increase costs and increase yields. Okay, so they're both not increasing. I mean, in terms of per unit output, costs might still be, were still going down. But those were really increased costs and you get returns in all. But efficiency reducing ones are different. Then I think a large question, it's an important question, I don't know how much I can do justice to it, is this thing about the center-state issues in agriculture. Now constitutionally it is a state subject, and I certainly believe that a lot of decentralization is not only something which we should be aiming for, but would in fact be good, not just because it's constitutional, not just because it's putting responsibility like this, it will be good for agriculture. Having said that, the situation which we see often is the following. The center does have a role constitutionally and in terms of economic merit, in terms of the research structure. Okay, that is something which is an overhead for the agricultural sector. It also has constitutionally and otherwise a huge role in agricultural trade. Not the mandi level trade, but international trade and interstate trade. Where the state has complete control constitutionally is in terms of crop production at the farm level and sales up to the mandi level. And some states obviously do better than other states, things differ. But overall you find that there has been a tendency for the importance of agriculture in the bureaucracy to have gone down. There was a time when the Agriculture Development Commissioner in Punjab or in Haryana used to be the second most powerful person after the Chief Secretary. Today the Development Commissioner is a relatively low guy. To actually make agriculture an important subject is something which is mainly driven by political considerations. Now, for one reason or the other, the center also got in with its own expenditure components. And sometimes the state's expenditure and the center's expenditures were at cross purposes, sometimes they helped each other. Now, one of the things that we did during that period 2004 to 2011 was try to give it better shape. What do we do? We started a program with a fairly large amount of corpus of money in it, 25,000 crores at that time, which had no single purpose, which is states would get up to that 25,000 crores. They wouldn't have to spend any money. All that they would have to show is that they plan. And in that plan, what role is this extra money going to happen? And incentives were put in on two things. One, for rain-fed areas, and two, for actual yield growth. This was called the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, where essentially states had to come up with proposals on what to spend within a broad rubric and within their own plan. So they had to justify it not because this is something that is spending, but in terms of their own larger agricultural plan. I think that worked rather well. That scheme still exists But now, like any other central scheme, it has become states pay 40%, center pays 60%, there it goes anyway. It is you come up in a competition, you prove something, you say that this is what you want to do. If it passes, you get the money, subject to certain things set by past good performance and your ability to have irrigation. So I think there are architectural issues in policy which can help, and I think then did help. Now, related to that is the question I think Mohan asked right away, and that is the 15%, 7% business. And I think, let's face it, I mean, the thing is that I did say 15% is doable, but I think that something like 8% and maybe even 10% would be doable.
Then we are on the same.
I think that can be doable. So 15 is not doable. And finally, as far as feminization and the social security issues are concerned, you know, one of the things that one gets out of traveling in the countryside, and especially amongst the rich peasant castes, that is the Marathas in this state, or the Jats in the north, Patels in Gujarat I'm not that familiar with, is that if you meet a young man, he says, "Koi shaadi nahi kar." Now that is unbefitting remain a farmer. So these young men are throwing the thing back in the girls. That these girls don't want to stay in rural areas. Okay? Rather than saying he is getting feminized. And I think there is something in all of this, which is, first of all, during this period, the big point about demography and work status is a massive drop in what the NSS reports as female work in agriculture. Now clearly females are working, it's not that they've stopped working. That work is being shown as household work rather than being shown as agricultural work. But it does actually tell you that same story, which is, I don't want to be seen in agriculture. So other than, feminization is happening, but is not being recognized. And people don't want, men and women are saying, look here, a non-agricultural job would have been better. Or if somebody I got married to had a permanent job somewhere outside agriculture, life would be much better. Not just because I wouldn't have to watch the cows every morning, watch the cow sheds every evening. I would have a proper toilet. I would have, there are large number of things, quite in addition to which, of course, are things like copper jams and things coming along. So it's a complex issue. It's an issue which I think, and the very fact that it's happening in our the dominant peasant caste more than anywhere else, also shows the weaknesses and cracks emerging within those things. But clearly, whatever it is, I think the feminist issue is part of a much larger issue, is that some sort of social security is being tried out. What exactly that is, the last group which did some work on it is the Arjun Sen-Gupta committee. That is, and I think that still remains the blueprint, and it's a sort of blueprint which I think this government has also very recently started looking at. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these things do come in the next budget, but I have a horrible suspicion that when they do come in, it will have all the hallmark of bad construction.
Thank you, Abhijit. If I may call on myself, because one question was addressed to me. But while I've raised that question, I'm tempted also to enter a couple of remarks on two other matters that have come up, which is feminization again. I think some of what Abhijit was just talking about has echoes of what Gunnar Lata found in the Asian drama in the 1960s when reporting on labor force participation of men and women in rural India. The status consciousness against wielding the plow in India goes way back, thousands of years. The first thing that any caste family that does well economically does is to withdraw its women from the labor force. And the next thing it does is to withdraw its men folk also in the actual act of labor. So labor is a very taboo subject in both areas. So that's partly implicated, I think, in what we're discussing here. The other thing that I'm tempted to address also briefly is the Gaurakshak movement. When you put the two and two together, namely that the Gaurakshak thing is happening and that there might be laws passed which might put these people in jail. It reminds me of what happened in Western Europe at the time of the enclosures. People talk about sheep devouring men. In our case, we'll be talking about cows, scrawny cows devouring men disappearing from the band. But the serious question addressed to me was price versus non-price factor in raising agricultural output and yields, particularly in a context where land reform has been sorely in need and has never seen the light of day. On the price versus non-price, I think this really goes to the heart of a matter concerning agricultural development in general, but especially agricultural development in the Asian context. This has been known at least since the time of the work of Shigeru Isakawa in the Asian context. And in the global context, since the time of the agricultural revolution in the United States of America, people forget, you see, how the United States, became a powerful economic nation. Most of its agriculture was driven by the state, believe me. I come from a state university. And the state universities were all agricultural universities. They were started with central health, okay? And the state universities, initially for the first 100 years of their existence, spearheaded the growing of plants, including the famous corn varieties. Everything came out of the public sector, all of that research. In the next 50 or 100 years, right now, they are spearheading the raising of children into adults through higher education. The public universities, including mine, educate 75–80% of American graduates. You only hear about the Harvards and the Princetons. Occasionally you might hear about the UC Berkeley and University of Michigan, the latter two being state universities. But there are many more state university educated people, and they happen to be closely connected at their birth to agricultural development also. So, price versus non-price factors, the main point I'm making here is that, roughly speaking, about 80% of agricultural growth is driven by non-price factors. Prices serve as incentives, but they are not the main thing. For example, it's a mistaken view that sometimes people like Kovvali have advocated that the Green Revolution was spearheaded by the price incentives given by Mrs. Gandhi's regime. Now, there is no doubt price incentives were given, but they played more the role of supporting actors rather than as the main drivers of the Green Revolution. Who were the main drivers of the agricultural revolution in India? Non-price factors. High-yielding varieties of grain. That does not come out of prices. It comes out of public research. Somebody was mentioning ICAR, for example. Agricultural extension services. Irrigation. Both public irrigation and regulation of groundwater use. Roads. Mani talked about farmers within the vicinity of Bombay or Delhi being able to reach very lucrative markets. That's roads and transportation and communication. It's no different from hinterland farmers. The hinterland farmers can also flourish if they have access to markets, but that's also a matter of infrastructure which the private sector will not put out. So in short, I'm saying the most important capitalist for agriculture is the government. Okay? And that's the same thing as saying that non-price factors are really the most important driver of agriculture. The last point is about land reform, which is an issue that has been on the back burner for decades now. In fact, I think it was always on the back burner in this country's history. Nobody really took it seriously so far as the decision makers and the elites were concerned, and that includes Jawaharlal Nehru, and I may bring in all the holy cows all at once, Mahatma Gandhi. They did not pay attention to the question of land. Now, does that mean that land reform is passé today? Students of mine know that I take a slightly different view on this matter, and I don't mind imposing my views on the rest of you. As long as I have this position. You see, the most important idea about land came out of an American economist called Henry George in the late 19th century, who argued that land bestows rents which should belong to society, because land does not belong to anybody. When Europeans came to the New World and they asked the Native Americans, say, you know, there's a lot of land around here. Can you tell me who is the owner? And the Native American replies, say, tell me, you know, what do you mean, who is the owner of the land? People don't even understand the question, let alone answer it. Okay, so land should not belong to anybody, with the result that the entire rent of land should accrue to society. This happens in Singapore and Hong Kong, not agricultural lands. Urban land, because they're owned entirely by the state of those respective countries. Did you know this? Do you think that liberalization economists are keen to educate the public about this elementary fact? How do you think Singapore gets the finest airport, the second finest port, the most beautiful roads, one of the best metros in the world, the finest bar none education system in the world? How do you think it gets all of that? Because all of the land rent of Singapore accrues to the government of Singapore, which it uses as a social fund to finance many other things. Now, what does all of this have to do with land reform? Okay. First of all, I might grant, after some considerable study, that old-fashioned land reform may be passé. You cannot give a half acre of land to a farmer and say, go ahead, prosper and flourish. They say, what can I do with half acre? Somebody mentioned 0.8 acres at the minimum before you can enjoy the benefits of modern technologies and so on. So that being the case, we should not impose a small family farm type of land reform, because that may not be feasible or efficient. But we can do another kind of reform, which is the Singapore model writ large, which is every village takes over all the land belonging to that village. And all the land belonging to the village now belongs to the village, in fact, not to this or that private owner. And then the village, you know, I'm after all an academic, so I'm allowed to speak from the ivory tower. And every village auctions the land to the highest bidder. Okay? So if you can grow spinach for the market and make a lot of money, you bid better than me, and I'm only willing to grow jawar at low prices. So the land will go to you in the auction hall, because you bid higher than me. You take the land, you produce more. But in the process, you would also have delivered more rent to the village. So the village, as the landowner, gets all the rent. What does the village do with it? It does what Singapore does with the rent of land. Builds a good school, builds a small good dispensary, improves the roads, improves the status of women, improves the status of Dalits, right? Improves law and order. God knows even that is good. So you can have a Gandhian-style village improvement program with the money to pay for it, you see? And that, I think, might be a feasible model of land reform, a kind of a narrow-thinking type of land reform, which actually could work in India and still usher in a kind of socialism for all practical purposes. And this is what Henry George was after. Thank you. Next round of questions, if there are any.
It's not stirred up enough. I think we need to stir it up a little. So here's a question for Vikas. You make the point, I think it's often forgotten, when you say income, whose income? Given the wide inhomogeneity in income, this is a polite speak for saying the huge inequality, huge oppressive inequality of rural society. Have we got it right? Don't you think in the last 30 years, particularly from pro-farmer, as they say, in the very word there is a problem. In all these movements, we have not been able to distinguish differentiate the benefits that different sections of farmers get. Schemes are labeled, but in practice, the polite word is elite capture. But we know what that means, the persistence and reproduction of this hierarchy. And we have not been able to, so whatever schemes, whatever is directed to the countryside, okay, it's not that whatever the intentions that are stated, nevertheless in practice the existing inequalities capture those benefits. And so everything ends up aggrandizing the rural rich in a manner that one did not intend, but nevertheless happens. So could you comment on that?
Yeah, we can take a few more questions. Yes, thank you. Ram, we hold your question in this meeting.
Good evening, panel. My question is related towards Dr. Sen. There's a lot of talk in policy circles and in newspaper editorials about taking farmers out of farming to alleviate their distress. Now, we've already suffered the consequence of unsustainable transition and skipping certain stages, and that is jobless growth. So, my question to you is what can be the possible unintended and lesser known consequences of this unsustainable transition from one sector to the other? And a brief comment to Dr. Rao's previous assertion about that model that you were talking about. Playing the devil's advocate, how can you reconcile your model, which you proposed, with the caste system? And the rich people will already bid for it, right? The highest bidder is going to have political motivations, certain economic motivations. So does your model propose that a positive view of human nature, or can it be reconciled with political motivations?
It certainly proposes immediate abolition of the caste system. I told you I was speaking from the ivory tower.
Yes.
Next, please.
Good evening. So my the first point is a comment concern to the reply that Dr. Satyasai was giving previously. As you were suggesting that SHGs are a really good model, taking into account the idea of joint liability groups in agriculture. I do respect the work and the work that self-help groups and joint liability groups are doing. But then I think we should also
take into consideration the fact that the context in which SHGs are working. For example, say in Andhra Pradesh, how SHGs, the work of SHGs were supposed to be having a high impact and efficient model, production of an efficient model in agriculture and in other employment. But then being set in a system of caste system, high caste system, how SHGs were a failure in Andhra Pradesh, and even the very idea of built-in depressor reverted in, and then how money lenders and landlords came back because one reason is caste system and how SHGs and caste system work together. Another system is how in this neoliberal world where MFIs and then corporates and banks got involved into SHGs and joint liability groups. So that is one concern. Another question is to Dr. Vikas. So we were talking about the doubling farmers' income and the suggestions. One is this technology, and how far is introduction of capital in agriculture will be efficient, taking lessons from the 60s experiments that we had, taking into account the built-in differences that India has in agriculture.
Thank you. I think I'll take one more final question before the panelists respond.
Good afternoon. My question is to Dr. Vikas. Sir, you mentioned about MSP plus 50% remuneration and how that can cause inequalities given on the kind of farming that you're doing and where you're located. So then what is the optimum pattern of remuneration in that case? Because in August when the farmers' protest happened, this is the remuneration that was demanded the most. So, but then again, if it has to be followed equally among all farmers, then probably it will increase the inequalities. So, can you just comment on that? Thank you.
The panelists will respond in the sequence.
So Jairam, I can only say I agree. but I mean, in fact, I think the point is that no matter what you do to prices, what you do to this, that, and so on, unless you change the fundamental agrarian relations, abolition of caste and landlordism, you may be able to one, get good statistics, as you did between the middle of 2000 to early part of this decade. You may also be able to provide some relief through whatever NREG is that and so on, but you don't fundamentally transform the situation of farmers. So, if you want to fundamentally transform the situation of a large majority of farmers, you have to change the relations of production and power relations fundamentally. So, I'm glad Mohan clarified that his model was founded on the premise that caste system will be abolished, because otherwise obviously the landlord will auction, you have all the auctions and balance it left.
It is about time it is abolished.
Sure, but you can't have you are not going to be able to do anything unless you got rid of all of this. On the question of cost plus 50%, I think the point I was trying to make is one, that you need to look at cost, and it's not just 50% over existing costs. You have to bring down costs. So you need to fix the problem of subsidies. You need to fix the problem of the public provisioning of inputs has broken down, and you need to deal with that. You need to make sure that farmers get good seeds. State provides good seeds to farmer, and farmer doesn't have to buy it from input dealers. You need to have a situation where there is a state agency that tells the farmer how to deal with whitefly infection. There is a state agency that there is state regulation of fertilizer prices, and so on and so forth. So one is the cost. The second is, the point I was making is that I think, I'm not sure of this, but I have been thinking about this, and my view seems to be that one needs to put a floor on the minimum income per unit of land that agriculture needs to have, which would mean that crops that are less remunerated, you need to increase the remunerativeness of those crops. So there needs to be a differentiated focus on. Similarly, poor farmers, you may have to provide greater support to poor farmers with higher costs and lower remunerativeness. So you have to ensure that every farmer gets a certain minimum return from the land that the farmer farms.
Thank you, Vikas. Abhijit?
There's only one direct question to me. It's a complicated question. It says that this unsustainable transfer of people or rather farmers out of farming. I mean, can this continue? The reason it's a complicated question is not because the question itself is complicated. It is because this process by which the workforce in agriculture declines as a proportion of total workforce can either be seen as creating more non-agricultural jobs or pushing farmers out of there. Now clearly, which way you look at it makes a huge difference to the attitudes you have. Creating non-agricultural jobs is obviously the issue, not simply pushing farmers out. And for various reasons, it's very unlikely that farmers will get pushed out. We can't, in the sense of, we can't see our average farm sizes. I mean, farmers will keep getting pushed out because a lot of farmers don't have enough land, so they can drop off. But you can't see the encroachment thing in India. You can't see a small landowning community becoming one where farms are 100 acres, 200-acre farms. You can't see that partly because, the point that I think everybody has made, and I think it needs to be made again, is that our growth, our development trajectory, everything else is still dependent on confronting our societal ills, whether they be patriarchy, but even more so caste. But having said that, it's not as if we have not moved anywhere. Our land reforms were great failures. But this is a country which used to have people with thousands of acres of land. Today, to have farms with hundreds of acres, it's still there. But it's not going to become your norm. It's partly because there's not enough land, but partly the politics will not allow it. So, I think forget about a model in which you bring your 500-acre Canadian pulse growing thing. That's not going to happen in India. And what we have to actually focus on is A, create opportunities for work outside agriculture and create opportunities for investment in agriculture. That is, make income in agriculture for those who remain the objective, and that income, as Vikas correctly said, is really the difference between revenues earned and costs incurred. Deliver a system on which that can happen. For agriculture, it could be good if both these things happen. Jobs are created elsewhere. You go out, transfer a little bit of land to the rest of your family. But in this country, the other thing which is going to be there is that so long as your savings mechanisms don't improve, most people will try to go back to the land because most people don't have permanent jobs or permanent pension schemes. That is where they are finally going to go back. So what you are seeing today is more and more small ownership of land, although the land itself is not going to be viable. The scale factors do not allow land operation to go very much below. But ownership scales are becoming smaller and smaller. Dalits are acquiring more land. I mean, these are facts also.
Thank you, Abhijit. I think it's here. Yes.
I think the quality of persons from students will be very good, challenging. The one she asked, what is your name? Shahnaz. She gave me material for full time research paper, not final. Anyway, I just try to answer one or two. Yes, you are right. SHG performance is not uniform across the country, every state, every corner of the, within the state also. Yes, in Andhra, I belong to Andhra. So if I visited a good number of universities. Some places good, some places good. And this caste system is not coming into that much play as much the MFI problem did play. Especially caste system, when I am saying caste system did not play that much havoc, because basically these are neighborhood groups. So some particular caste people within the particular vicinity, if they join together, I think this homogeneity problem, heterogeneity problem is not that much. And then second thing I observed in the groups we visited is, once it comes in terms of this some sort of hope and opportunity when they see, I think they are not very much bothered about this caste. Then I have seen some good high cost people also mixing it, other dialects and others for forming a group. And especially forming a group with incentive, they have incentive in forming groups, so they are mixing with other castes. I think that is not that much problematic in many of the groups at least. Yes, certain villages are there where caste is a problem. I think there again you will not find them mixing and matching with, especially with this type of system. I think this should be okay as an answer, I think. Remaining this you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Satyasai. You not only answered the question of this person the best you could, but you also told us something that we ought to know, and we probably know, which is what a vibrant, wonderful intellectual community our students are on this campus.
I want to add one more sentence.
Please.
Every year we have summer interns with us. Invariably, 1 or 2 students come from here. I think their reports are the best.
Yes, I think I'll second that because I read a number of term papers and proposals, dissertation proposals, or discuss those with my students here. And I tell you, they equal or surpass the best anywhere I have seen. So this speaks volumes. The participation this afternoon speaks volumes for our very interested, very understated community of students here. They're not throwing their weight around, but they manage to get around quite a lot. So first of all, I think this is an event that is another feather in your cap. Keep doing many more Ibtedas, and we will make a meal out of it. And thanks especially also, of course, to our very distinguished panel speakers. They have brought their immense experience and ideas and thinking and challenges. Notice that they have not necessarily said that they know all the answers, which is the high mark of a high intellectual, somebody who thinks about his subject. It's the shallow ones who beat their drums aloud and proclaim their infinite wisdom and knowledge. If you want to find such characters, just go to Delhi, anytime. I don't mean the university, of course. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
We thank all our panelists for a small token of our appreciation from Ibteda.